All right, now, as I'm in a pretty good mood because Canada just won another medal, and Canada's doing really well considering this is the Summer Games. Did anybody tell these athletes that Canada doesn't usually do very well at the Summer Games? Because I don't think any of these men or women know that. And uh, as much as I shit talk these games, now that they've started, I'm fully behind Canada. I hope that everybody's safe and that Rio's got their shit together. Honestly. Um, I really hope that these athletes are well protected and that these venues have highest security standards. Um, I have my doubts, but I hope I'm wrong. Anyways, that being said, a question was asked today, and since it's apparently this user's birthday, I'm going to give it a shot. Comparing the three Stanley Cup finalists in Vancouver, it's the Stanley Cup finals in Vancouver, it's sort of like a really, really sweet piece of cake that has cod liver oil in the middle of it. So you think it's just great, and then at the end you have this really bad taste in your mouth. That's how Stanley Cup finals go in Vancouver. And honestly, at the end of any given Stanley Cup final, well, the 94 and 2011 ones, I came out of them saying I don't want to see them in the final again. Both of them. Um, but I remember 1982. I remember they beat Calgary in the first round, which was exciting because that never happened. Calgary wasn't a great team at the time. They hadn't really developed into the juggernaut they'd become later. The Battle of Alberta was in its infancy. Wasn't much to write home about. But Vancouver was lucky. The powerhouse Edmonton Oilers got knocked out by the LA Kings, and the LA Kings were behind Vancouver in the standings. So Vancouver had home ice against LA. Meanwhile, over in the Norris Division, the St. Louis Blues and Chicago Blackhawks, or not Chicago Blackhawks, the St. Louis Blues and Minnesota North Stars, who were the power of the Norris Division, the Chicago Blackhawks emerged from that division. The Chicago Blackhawks were not a very good team, and Vancouver had home ice against them after they knocked out the Kings. What happened that year was magical, and yet there was a lot of luck involved because Vancouver never had to face not being the home team until the Stanley Cup Finals when the New York Islanders were their opposition. New York Islanders with lots of Hall of Famers and a team that it wasn't even close. Like it was a 4-game series. Um, the first game was a 6-5 loss, and they played about as well as you can play when you're in way over your head, and they were way over their heads. Um, they were bested in the net. I remember after game one, I remember Richard Berder taking a punch at a cameraman, which didn't sit well with me as a 9-year-old watching that. I thought that was poor sportsmanship, and Vancouver was badly overmatched, and the next 3 games were pretty painful for a Canucks fan. But there were a few things that came out of that. I remember "Na Na Na Hey Hey Goodbye" was on the radio all the time. That was it was so much fun at the end of any series to sing that. And I know Towel Power started in Vancouver during the Chicago series. I've talked about that before with Roger Nielsen and a couple of players holding up sticks with white flags on them. They were the towels, and then when they came home from Chicago, all the fans brought their towels, and it was organic, just like the "Na Na Na Hey Hey Goodbye" at the end of the series was organic, um, and it was fun. You know, and I think about that looking now, and you don't see that very often. You don't see that very often with fans anymore. I can't remember the last time I heard fans in a building chanting "Na Na Na Hey Hey Goodbye" at the end of a series. Maybe somebody watching this can let me know, but I can't remember it recently. I've know there's numerous occasions where they do the countdown to the last 10 seconds. Crazy cheers go up, but that singing, that organic feeling in the crowd, it doesn't really happen anymore. It's kind of there's some magic gone from there. So in terms of the 3 Stanley Cup finalists from Vancouver, the '82 team was the least talented with the most heart. And that was when I decided I wanted my favorite team not to be the best team, but the hardest working team. And the mid 80s Vancouver Canucks were a very, very hardworking team. Um, that didn't change until I want to say 84, 85 was about when it got frustrating because not only were they a poor team, but their effort wasn't there either. Um, when your team loses and you feel like they're giving everything they've got to try to win, it's easier to watch. It's easier to cheer for them than it is when they're losing and they just don't seem to want to be there. Um, but we moved to 94. 94 was not the best team in the 90s the Canucks had. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The 91-92 Vancouver Canucks were the best Canucks team in the 90s and got shut down by the Oilers. And then in 93, they got shut down by the Kings. And it was frustrating because 92, of all of the Canucks teams, 92, if they'd won the Stanley Cup, it would have been the best. Because then Larionov would have held up a Stanley Cup as a Vancouver Canuck, and that's what I was dreaming of at the time. Um, and then when Larionov left and they tried using Sherifianov to replace him, I'm like, just because he's Russian. And it was obvious that's what they were doing. They tried plugging Sherifianov into the old position that Larionov had, and it just didn't work. But, John McIntyre came in. He plugged in that fourth line center spot. And the Canucks rode that wave to the final. Now, in the first round, they were lucky. Calgary had them dead to rights, and they just wouldn't die. Overtime, overtime, overtime. Calgary could not finish them in overtime. Everybody remembers the Bure goal in Game 7. I remember the Jeff Courtnall goal in Game 6. After the Jeff Courtnall goal in Game 6, I had a feeling the Canucks were going to win that series. Even though they had to go home or go to Calgary for Game 7, I was like, nah, this is not over. Calgary's not going to win this just because they're going home. And when Bure scored that goal, I mean, I lost it. I was so happy. So happy. I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted. The Canadian girl just landed on her back. She totally missed the bar, didn't she? No, she got the bar and slipped off of it. Oh, shoot. She's lucky she didn't get hurt. It's a good thing that's well padded. Not her, the floor underneath her. That sucks. Just Canadian gymnastics doesn't usually go very well, so there's a part of me saying, geez, it'd be nice to see the Canadian girl do well, because Canadian girls don't usually medal in the Olympics in terms of gymnastics, but two medals in the pool, so who knows, right? Anyways, now this girl's going to cry, and I'm going to try not to be distracted by that. But 94, so they get past Calgary. Second round, they get Dallas. I remember watching every game. I'd have my Canucks jersey on. I had a Dallas jersey around my waist, another Dallas jersey tied around my neck as a scarf, and another Canucks jersey tied around my waist backwards so that I could watch the games and enjoy them and not care who won. At that point in time in 94, I was an equal Dallas fan and Vancouver fan, even during that Stanley Cup playoff series, and I was upset when it was over in 5 because it's like, crap. I want this series to go 7. I want to enjoy this, and it just didn't happen. It was too bad. But yeah, and then the Toronto series happened. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here was it was the only time ever that series between a West and an Eastern team could be done 2-3-2 format, meaning 2 on the road, 3 at home, 2 on the road. So even though the Canucks against Dallas and Toronto did not have home ice because they had 3 games in a row at home, they just had to earn the split on the road. They earned the split, and then they come home and they win 3 in a row, and it's over. And it was unfair. I will admit, as a Canucks fan, that was unfair. It works in basketball somehow, or it did work. I don't think they did that this year in basketball. I don't know when they got rid of that, but it is an unfair advantage to have 3 games in a row in one venue in a best of 7 series. It gives an unfair advantage to the team that shouldn't have home field or home ice. And I really felt for Toronto, to be honest. It's probably the only time I felt for Toronto. But when Greg Adams scored that goal and they went to the final, I wasn't watching. I was too nervous. I actually had my TV turned on. I don't remember what I was watching, but I hear a scream from my neighbors on one apartment on one side and scream from neighbors on the other side, and I was like, and the Canucks scored. So I turned to CBC and I just hit the roof. Um, and Greg Adams, man, between Adams and Jalina, Ronning, Courtnall, there's so many of my all-time favorite Canucks that were on that team. That was the best Canucks team. Notice I'm saying team, okay? I don't think any Canucks playoff team, including the 2011, could have taken out the 1994 Canucks. They were just too determined. And while I love Luongo's game, consistency was McLean's game in the 94 playoffs. He was consistently excellent. The Canucks scoring was on point. Their defense was fantastic. Everything in the Canucks lineup just hummed. And on the point, they had Jeff Brown. And the 2011 Canucks didn't have anything on the point that could have answered Jeff Brown. And they didn't have the depth in 2011 of the 1994 Canucks. The 94 Canucks could roll three scoring lines, and that fourth line could shut you down. It was pretty damned entertaining and pretty strong indication of what you can do with depth without worrying about a salary cap. But anyways, I doubt that Canucks team would have been over a salary cap anyways. 2011 though. 2011's tough. 2011 you have the first round against Chicago. So they start the series against Chicago up 3-0. And Canucks fans are partying in the streets. And I remember when Raffi Torres hit that dirty, shitty hit on Seabrook behind the net, I cringed. Because from that moment on, Chicago controlled the series. They won Game 4 easy. They won Game 5. They won Game 6. And they tied Game 7 and sent it into overtime. And I was scared to death. I was like, this is bad. And this was at a time when Boston was trying to overcome blowing a 3-0 series lead. And all I could think was, okay, so I've watched Boston blow a 3-0 series lead against Philly, and now I'm going to watch Vancouver do it against Chicago. That was horrifying. And I can't see the 94 Canucks blowing a series lead. They finished Dallas in 5. They finished Toronto in 5. They came back from 3-1 down against Calgary, and they came back from 3-1 down against the Rangers to make it a 7-game series. Those Canucks never, they were known as the Cardiac Canucks for a reason. And the 2011 Canucks didn't have that. Now, past the first round, oh my God, another Canadian takes a tumble. It's like skating all over again. It's like figure skating. There was, so Jose Chouinard was the skater. And somebody mentioned, my laughing about the Pacioretty thing. I do have moments where I laugh at inappropriate times. I would watch Jose Chouinard skate at the Olympics, and I would cheer every time she landed on her ass because I knew it was going to happen. I would even time it, because they would tell you, okay, here comes her triple. Oh, triple. She's not going to hit this. She's going to land on her ass, and then she'd land on her ass, and I would laugh, even though I cheered for Jose Chouinard and I didn't want her to land. I didn't want it to happen. I really didn't want it to. I wanted her to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, Jose, and you're on your ass again. Damn it. Sort of like in tennis, Helen Kelsey was a great Canadian player, but horrible, horrible temper tantrums on the court. So I'd watch her game waiting for the temper tantrum, and I didn't care if she lost after that. I just wanted to witness the temper tantrum. And I loved Helen Kelsey. I had pictures of her on my wall, like cutouts from the newspaper. We used to buy newspapers back in those days, kids, and you actually read them and cut out clippings and put them on your wall because not everybody had 8x10 pictures back in the 80s and 90s. But as much as I thought she was gorgeous, her temper tantrums were epic. And I would laugh while she had the temper tantrum and then watch the rest of her game meltdown. I don't get that same enjoyment watching Jeannie Bouchard Because when Jeannie Bouchard loses it, it's just sad. You watch a tennis match and Jeannie Bouchard loses it, you, you see it. You watch, and she'll be in control. In control. She's the Olympics. She won the first round, second round. Wait for it. She'll be up 5-1, and then there's a point. She loses the point, and she'll take her racket and look at it, maybe hit it on the ground. She starts doing the caveman shit and sort of rolling her eyes, and it's like, fuck, Jeannie, you're up. Look at the score, you're up. Relax, and it's over. And there's no freaking out. She might fling her racket, but it's it's more of a resignation of I suck, is how it comes off. And once she's made that decision that she sucks, it's over. It's not nearly as entertaining as Helen Kelsey used to be. Um, it's it's just sad to watch. Um, but back to the 2011 Stanley Cup Finals. The Canucks lost their shit against Chicago and were very lucky that Burrows scored in overtime. And then in the second round, they get Nashville, and Nashville was overmatched. Nashville didn't have an answer for the Canucks. They weren't as good as Nashville is now. My favorite moment from the Nashville series, and actually my Facebook profile picture for the next 2 weeks after that, was Carrie Underwood crying. Um, see, something in my brain. Um, I, I I couldn't stand every time I turned around. Carrie Underwood was being shown in the crowd wearing a Nashville jersey. And I was like, you know what? I want that woman to cry. And when it happened, it was glorious. And I saved the picture to my computer off the TSN site, and I used it as my profile picture for weeks. I probably still have it somewhere on a thumb drive. The computer I used is dead now, but it's probably still on a thumb drive somewhere. Is Carrie Under, and I could Google it and I could get it and I could probably use it as the picture for my channel, but I'm not going to. But it was awesome. I was so happy. The clock's counting down. I'm like, the Canucks are going to get in the next round. They're in the semifinals, and I knew they were going to beat San Jose. So it was like, and there's Carrie Underwood crying. I'm like, and perfect. Carrie's crying. And I like Carrie Underwood. I think she's a beautiful woman. I think she's a good singer. I hate country music, but Carrie Underwood's very talented, and I don't take anything away from her. Um, she's fantastic at what she does, but her crying was like the highlight of the playoffs for me. Um, that was just like my nirvana, my perfect moment. And then San Jose, that was a 5-game series, and again, I knew they were going to beat San Jose. Um, BX's goal from the blue line was a thing of beauty, but I knew before that it was going to be over. Um, San Jose didn't have an answer for Vancouver. Kessler was at his absolute peak. You want to see a playoff where I had no problem with Kessler the entire fucking time, and I loved the guy? It was 2011. 2011 Kessler, never once did I see him throw his head back and act and pull bullshit. He talked he talked a lot of shit to the other bench. So did Burrows. They did that together quite a bit. But he was on completely on fire the whole playoffs. Kessler, holy shit, that guy took a tumble off the bike. What the frick? Is he dead? Like, seriously. Everything's fine. Do 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 do. Everything's wait. What's that on the road? Is what? Wait, Oh, no, no, it's not that corner. Oh, yeah, no, there's the dead guy. Okay, yeah, all right. I thought they were going to show the accident again. Apparently they're not showing the accident again. They're just going to show the guy riding past it, I guess. That's weird because I thought that was the guy that had the accident. Nope, Mayor Abbott. That's not the same person at all. Wow. I guess that's live. I thought that was highlights. They were going to show it again from a different angle. Holy shit. That drove by the dead guy though. Not even hesitation, just dead. Yeah, no, they didn't show it again. It'll be on highlights. If you care, you'll see it on Sports Center tonight. You'll see what I mean. And again, that's my reaction. Guy, the front wheel just stops and he goes head over heels, and I'm like, and he's dead. And it just comes out. This is the side of my personality not everybody can handle. Um, I don't have a problem with him. It's just one of those, wow, is he dead? Um, but yeah, the San Jose series was fun to watch because Vancouver had them overmatched. And again, it was a 5-game series, so I felt like the Canucks had some energy left. And then the final happened. I've done a whole video on the final. I don't need to rehash it. Um, Most disappointing final I've ever watched. And it proved in that final the way Vancouver went down. They went down without a fight in Game 7. There's no way in hell the 94 Canucks would have gone down without a fight. The 94 Canucks, not only that, the 82 Canucks against the 2011 Canucks in a final series, not any other series, but in a Stanley Cup final with that silver trophy on the line, the 82 Canucks beat 2011. Just on heart and determination alone. So between the three, 94 is the best, 2011 is the most talented, and 82 has the most heart. And they inspired a city. The 82 final didn't end in a riot. Even after Game 4, there wasn't this dread over the franchise and over the team. Everybody was in love with everybody else. Everybody loved Roger Nielsen. They loved all the Canucks. Every sports broadcast was just fantastic. And I think that's part of the reason why I have an affection for the Flying V jersey, because that was what they wore. And everybody criticized them, that jersey, the team, management, everything. And it didn't matter. They went to the final. So it sucks they didn't win the cup. It does. It sucks that no team in Canada has won the cup since '93. That's why, as much as I can't stand Montreal and I'm not a huge fan of Calgary, if one of them won the cup this year, I'd be happy because at least then a Canadian team would have won the Stanley Cup. Because it is getting to the point where it's been basically a quarter of a century. Is it ever coming back to Canada? But that's a video for another time too. I have my theories as to why Canadian teams don't win in the Stanley Cup final, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It's very simple. But this video is about the Canucks and apparently about the Olympics because, some guy almost died on his bike. I don't understand why they only showed that once. I figured they were, wow, that must have been live because they're just showing like racing. That's scary. That in Tour de France, there's actually a couple of stages I can't watch because they're on that mountainside. And I've watched guys like lose control going around corners and almost go right off the fucking cliff. And it's like, you guys couldn't put up a barrier or something? I understand you want to have it out in nature and you want it to be this natural course, but don't you want people not to die? Isn't it important that your athletes don't die? Because they'll die. It's not, this isn't the joking me. They'll go right off a cliff, and I've watched them almost do it. And it is really scary. Yeah, was it the Canadian that, because they have a DNF for Tara Whitten of Canada, was it a Canadian that fell on her head? Holy crap. Well, if it was a Canadian, you're going to see it on sports tonight, definitely. So watch for that. But that's my opinion on the Vancouver Canucks of 82, 94, and 2011. And that's it for me for today. So thank you. Hit like and subscribe. And again, my sense of humor is not meant to offend people or upset people. I'm not even going to talk about the Steve Moore incident with Todd Bertuzzi. Although I have plenty of opinions on that as well. And I'll put it this way. Steve Moore's neck wasn't broken by Todd Bertuzzi punching him. It was the dog pile after. That's it. That's all I'm going to say on it. Because I've always heard how, oh, well, Bertuzzi broke his neck. Yes and no. Yes and no. Because you grab the guy here, right? You pull him back and you give him the punch. Now, he was out cold. Out cold. Bertuzzi rode him to the ice. The smart thing would have been one of the Avalanche grabbing Bertuzzi by the back of the jersey and pulling him off. And my theory is this. If one of the Avalanche had grabbed Bertuzzi by the jersey, pulled him off Moore, and Moore had immediate medical attention, his neck's not broke. The dog pile with Moore at the bottom of it, Sad, horrible incident. And it marred the rest of Bertuzzi's career. It was this dark cloud that hung over him in Vancouver. And it was too bad because he was having a really shitty season that year too. The other angle with Bertuzzi was that in that season, the Canucks were sort of, you could see that tailspin was starting. They were on the verge of going off the cliff. The lockout was coming, the salary cap was coming, which hurt the Canucks, but the team was starting to fall apart. The West Coast Express was falling apart. Bertuzzi only had 17 goals, and he was counted on for 40, and he only had 17 at that point, and he was frustrated. You could see in his game, every game, he was getting more and more frustrated by the play of the team, by his play. He wanted something to happen. And when Steve Moore hit Marcus Naslund, and the injury happened to Naslund, which I still think affected the rest of Naslund's career, because he was never the same after that hit, the anger in that room was Brad May, Crawford, the coach, and Bertuzzi. Because the feeling was the Canucks had probably one last shot at that real Stanley Cup run, and Steve Moore had taken that away by injuring their key player. And Naslund wasn't having a great year at that point, but he was having a good season. And after that injury, it fell apart for him. And that was the season after the famous "we choked," which he said to the crowd, and I thought took tremendous courage. And he took a lot of flack for that, but he had tremendous courage by saying "we choked." I thought it showed real leadership and guts. And sadly, it was mocked. But, it is what it is. But, yeah, that's as far as I'm going to go with the whole Steve Moore thing, because I know a lot of Avalanche fans get angry, and I don't blame them. If I was an Avalanche fan, I'd be angry too. And it's the reason why anytime a Canucks fan says, hey, we should try to get Dominic Moore, I go, that's Steve's brother. Probably still doesn't want to play for Vancouver. Just throwing that out there. Couldn't blame him either. You're a damn good player. Probably doesn't want to play with Bertuzzi ever, and probably never wants to play in Vancouver. So, it's, if Florida had to trade away Tim Thomas because Luongo came to town, and that's clearly what happened there, what are the odds of Dominic Moore wanting to share a locker room with Bertuzzi? Not going to happen. But, anyways, this is the trials and tribulations of the Vancouver Canucks franchise, and this year is going to be quite the trial and lots of tribulations. But for now, they're unbeaten because the season hasn't started yet.